Hello people, I'm the Anime Hero, and I review anime so you can enjoy it. In my last JoJo discussion, I spoke at the beginning of JoJo with the presentation of Part 1. And the time before that, I talked about the different adaptations of the JoJo anime. However, today is actually a research video on a certain installment of JoJo, being the OVA series, and how it played a role into making the JoJo anime we have today. However, many other factors took part in current mainstream appeal of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The original 1993 OVA was a total of 6 episodes, featuring the conclusion of Part 3. So, why start the series at the end of Part 3 instead of beginning at Part 1? To make things even stranger, this JoJo OVA would resurface in 2000, only this time it would adapt the beginning of Part 3. After much thinking and research, I may have figured out why these OVAs exist and their odd debut with Part 3, which essentially made Stardust Crusaders the most popular part in all of JoJo. My theory is Stardust Crusaders is popular simply because of the marketing decision to make products and advertise JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to international releases. The first piece of evidence comes from the lack of an anime during the 1980s, as just about anything from Shonen Jump would typically be animated by Toei Animation, such as Fist of the North Star, Sakigake Otokojuku, Saint Seiya, Dragon Ball, and so on. Many fans speculated it was the usage of the copyrighted band and song names that prevented JoJo from receiving an anime. Especially since today, several properties do maintain some form of copyright, such as the changed names for several JoJo characters in anime, manga, and the PS3 games. Without an anime, the JoJo series is harder to promote, even with its early run in the late 1980s. But, as luck would have it, JoJo would earn its chance not in an anime, but as a game.
今ここにヒーローたちが集結した。ゲームと呼ぶには面白すぎる。ファミコンジャンプヒーロー列伝。
This NES game being released in 1988 featured a role-playing system while having a collaboration with 16 different Jump titles, which marks the debut of JoJo, but not with Jonathan Joestar, but with Joseph Joestar. This occurred because Battle Tendency was running in Shonen Jump, and what better way to advertise kids to buy the manga than to feature it alongside other Jump heroes battling against Demon King Piccolo.
夢の対決が君を待っている。ラオウには抜け作、邪気には悟空、マシリトには聖夜。君は誰と誰を対決させるか。 RPG ファミコンジャンプ。
This game is more focused on Dragon Ball than anything else, so there's links in the description to offer more information. Interestingly, around the same time, another Jump series being Sakigake Otokojuku would feature manga cameos of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2 Battle Tendency, in which the school's principal, Edajima Heihachi, would be seen reading, thus possibly being the first animated image of JoJo.
失敗は許されん。俺も燃えるぜ。ファミコンジャンプ2登場。
In 1991, JoJo would appear again in games, this time in the sequel, Famicom Jump 2 Saikyo no Shinjin! Or in other words, the strongest 7, thus featuring only 7 heroes being Son Goku, Jungle King Tarchan, Tsurugi Momotaro, Daruruto, Ryutsu Kankichi, Maeda Taison, and Kujo Jotaro. And now we enter 1993, where everything happened. In Jump, JoJo Part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable had started running for nearly a year, but at March, what was released was the first ever JoJo game being an RPG of Stardust Crusaders, featuring every enemy of the arc, while making each Crusader playable.
ミステリアスショック。今始まる未体験スタンドバトル。スーパーファミコンジョジョの奇妙な冒険。
However, this would only serve to set up the hype for JoJo, as in September, Jotaro would reappear in Cult Jump for the Game Boy, which finally led to November's release of the Stardust Crusaders OVA adaptation. And this is why Part 3 was picked. Stardust Crusaders simply had more characters to choose from, both heroes and villains, along with its signature style of introducing stands into the series. Thus, this OVA would later be followed up with the 1998 Capcom release of Heritage for the Future, or sometimes called JoJo's Venture. This is my theory why Part 3 was selected for an OVA adaptation, as the hype for Part 3 was at its peak. But as for why they selected to adapt only the final battles, I can only make guesses. It's possible that these villains were simply the more popular and threatening in Part 3, and the decision was to appeal to the JoJo fans, demonstrating the finale of the arc which would then lead new fans to begin reading JoJo either from the beginning or to market its ongoing Part 4. But now this leads to another question. Why did they start the OVAs from the beginning in 2000? In its history of games, JoJo had basically placed its effort all into Part 3, due to the reasons I said before, and as a result, with the passage of time, all of these game promotions made Part 3 incredibly popular. Seeing how the fanbase was at its strongest in Part 3, Studio APPP decided to create the OVAs from its start. Other factors that led to this was the idea of marketing the OVA series to other countries, as simultaneously, North America and Europe would receive JoJo Heritage for the Future on both the PlayStation and the Sega Dreamcast. So what better way to tie in the game than with an anime to go with it, thus making the original 6-episode series relevant again, leading to the 13-episode OVA we know today. The United States would then begin releasing the OVAs on DVD during 2003 by the company Super Techno Arts. Then jumping aboard the JoJo hype train, Viz Media would begin releasing the manga in 2005, while both the OVA and manga would advertise each other. And since the only anime that existed for JoJo were the OVAs, Viz Media picked the most logical choice of playing it safe with releasing the manga for Stardust Crusaders. This is why for the longest time the only JoJo manga that was released into English was Stardust Crusaders. Meanwhile in Japan, the hype for JoJo would continue to grow as the manga kept going into parts 5 and 6, which Part 5 created a game for the PS2. Then for the 20th anniversary, interest sparked for Part 1 Phantom Blood, as it would have a movie adaptation and a PlayStation 2 game. Eventually, this led to a halt in JoJo material due to negative reviews, but the manga kept going with Parts 7 and 8, which then gave birth to the announcement of All-Star Battle and the JoJo anime in 2012, because of its 25th anniversary, thus leading to today in 2015, with Part 3 is nearing the finale of its era. Hopefully this means something big would happen in this 30th anniversary. Tune in the future where I review and analyze the OVA series of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.